What's up, everybody? It's Jared with Capture the Magic. And when it comes to video games in the theme parks, we are going to start seeing a lot more of this into the future. We've already seen this with Universal, with Super Nintendo World and Epic Universe, out in Hollywood, in Japan. And Disney has stated that they want video games in their theme parks, but there have been lots of questions about how would Disney go about doing this, considering they don't have access to Nintendo, and really, what would they use and how would they do it? Well, Disney, of course, paid $1.5 billion to have a stake in Epic Games, who is the creator of Fortnite. And I think we're starting to get a picture of what Disney's approach with using video games into their theme parks will be like. And so in this video, we're going to go through some of the evidence here. We're starting to see the breadcrumbs. And is this really going to be something that's going to compete with Universal and Nintendo, and how Disney is likely to do this? As I think it's a very interesting conversation. So that's what we're going to talk about today, go through this and give some thoughts on it. So since Disney bought a stake into Epic Games basically almost 2 years ago, DMRO has made some quotes about this previously. This is from WDW Magic. And it says Disney plans to integrate gaming in theme parks like never before. DMR said in a CNN interview that the development of the Abu Dhabi park, which is the new theme park that is built out in the Middle East, said that park directly is going to broaden the digital strategy, including its $1.5 billion investment into Epic Games. He noted that younger audiences, particularly Gen Alpha, are spending more time in virtual spaces, making gaming not just a form of entertainment, but a social and creative platform where Disney needs to be present. I would say it's far beyond Gen Alpha. If you look at how big video games are, it is not just Gen Alpha. People have been playing games for a very long time. And yes, Gen Alpha is going to be part of that. But I think that if they're just now realizing this, which when they made that purchase into Epic Games, Bob Iger was like, we notice people are playing video games. It's like, they've been playing games for decades, Bob. You know, I do believe Disney is definitely behind the eight ball here in terms of looking at Universal and really where the attention is. And of course, Disney is trying to stay relevant with the younger generations because they don't have the young audiences like they used to. I mean, a lot of, growing up in the 90s, many kids grew up as Disney kids. You had the Disney Renaissance with the animation, and you had less entertainment choices. Whereas now there's lots of entertainment choices. There's YouTube channels and personalities out there. And Disney has been struggling to reach those. I mean, even the number one streaming show on Disney Plus is not something Disney owns. It's Bluey. They have the streaming rights to it, but Disney's not creating content necessarily that is really, reaching the younger crowds, I would say, in the modern day. And video games are, have far surpassed, Hollywood and, traditional entertainment. And I think they're trying to play catch up on this and getting involved with Fortnite. Now, Fortnite has about 110 million players on average per month, so that's a big group of people that they're going to try and tap into with this. DMR described a vision in which experiences inside games like Fortnite, developed by Epic Games, could have tangible connections to real-world parks. So he says right then and there, they're going to use Fortnite into the theme parks in some way. And there's been lots of questions about how would they do that. It says, think about a Disneyland theme park inside of a virtual environment. And by the way, back and forth, he explained. Something that you experience in Fortnite, for example, which is part of Epic Games, that experience you have there, you might be able to carry back to a theme park. He also said, we're really pushing hard into the space. And with the new park that we're building here in Abu Dhabi, we've got an opportunity from ground up to think about how games and interactivity cannot be just something that you do at home or on your phone, but now interplays with the actual park. So I've often assumed, and I think he's kind of saying that right there, that this Abu Dhabi park that Disney's building, Disney's not paying anything to do this. Essentially, the Middle East and Abu Dhabi are paying for this. They're just using Disney's IP. But Disney's going to use this park to experiment with basically how people interact with things, and then likely bring those over to the U.S. parks. They kind of do that sometimes with Disneyland Paris. I think this is going to be a massive test ground that they use to try and get data about this. Now, DMRO recently had more things to say about this. This is from Drew Smith on Twitter X. He said, DMRO says, on how technology is transforming Disney experiences worldwide. He says, quote, because we have both physical destinations and digital platforms, we can connect fans to the stories they love in ways no one else can on a global scale. What you're seeing now is a true convergence of great stories meeting cutting-edge tech inside deeply immersive real-world experiences. That combination is unrivaled, and it's exactly what fans are craving. So he's not saying video games directly in that quote, but you can kind of read between the lines of what he's getting at here. And then we also had from Drew Smith, this was confirmed, that Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, the new Mandalorian and Grogu mission, will connect to the Disney games and entertainment universe coming to Fortnite. The mission will leverage Epic Games' Unreal Engine for seamless cross-platform storytelling. So this is the first time we've seen Disney really kind of announce an aspect of what they're doing with Epic Games coming to the theme parks. And then you also have this currently going on with Fortnite, is that there is a new Simpsons collaboration going on. Now, Fortnite is not new to collaborations. It's basically what the game is built on, is they use very different, various IPs. They've used Disney properties in the past, long before they even purchased a stake into Epic Games. They've had Marvel, Star Wars, The Incredibles, like lots of different characters inside this game, as have other IPs. So Fortnite is not just a place that only Disney's going to be able to play here, but it's going to be a medium where Disney is going to integrate a lot of these collaborations with their IPs that directly play into the theme parks. Now, I also think if you look at this as well, talking about the theme parks with The Simpsons, currently the Simpsons theme park rights are with Universal Studios. That contract is reportedly up in 2028. Personally speaking, I think with this Fortnite integration, the fact that it does seem like it's been very popular, the servers did crash. There was reported over 200 million players at one time playing Fortnite when this was going on. And even if Universal wanted to keep, the Simpsons area, which I don't know if they do, there's been reports that they do not, but even if they wanted to, I don't think that Disney is going to renew that contract, because you also have the Simpsons movie coming out next year. And if this is already successful on Fortnite, I think there's a really good chance that Disney is going to want to retain the theme park rights for properties that they own, because if this Simpsons Fortnite collaboration continues to be popular, if the Simpsons movie continues to be popular, they want to be able to put these into their theme park. So I think they're going to retain those rights regardless of what Universal wants to do. And I think Universal does want to move on from this, or from the Simpsons. It'll probably be pretty amicable if I were to guess. But I think this gives you an idea of how they're going to try and use video games into their theme parks. Now, I think the question comes into, is this really a good way to do it, considering Disney is different from Universal in terms of how the audiences are expecting immersion and, classic Disney storytelling in the theme parks, which has been heavily criticized over recent years as not being nearly as good as it used to be, especially when coming from Imagineering. So with Universal having Nintendo and Epic Universe, and again, that is only going to continue to grow. Nintendo is only going to become more popular. I don't see any way that that's not going to happen. Nintendo is essentially a lifestyle brand at this point. And I've said many times that I think Nintendo potentially could be a bigger thing for the Universal theme parks than the Wizarding World has been for them. I think it is potentially that big with where video games currently are at and where video games are going to currently be going. You're just at the beginning stages here of seeing more movies and shows made off of video games. And so Universal is going to directly benefit from that, with Nintendo especially. Then, but even with that, you have the rumors of Universal getting involved with anime, which is kind of coincides with video games. Anime is huge, and I think Universal is set up very well to really get involved with that. And I think this leaves Disney trying to play catch up with especially these younger audiences, trying to find something that they are interested in that they can go to their theme parks for. Because right now, Disney currently operates off of nostalgia for the most part. It's based off of, not all of it, but a lot of it off of the Disney Renaissance in the 90s that you see be brought to the theme parks now. There is some newer properties, of course, but brand new IPs and things that Disney is making is not nearly as strong as it was back in the 90s. And so Disney's going to have to try and find things to get the younger audiences involved with. And Fortnite, I think, is the reason they bought into Epic Games, because, again, the player count and how relevant it is in pop culture. So it seems Disney's approach is going to be do these collaborations in Fortnite that directly play into aspects of the theme parks and using that as a draw to get people to come to the theme parks. Now, I suppose the big question there is, first off, will that work? And is that going to be near as effective as what Universal has with Nintendo? And I think the way that Disney would do this kind of reminds me of that Play Pavilion that they had originally planned for Epcot and what that was going to look like. There's a lot of things with the Epcot overhaul that did not end up happening that I think a lot of fans have been disappointed by. One was we'll go through this real quick and then get back to the video games. These were things that initially were announced. There was going to be the expanded World Showcase. There was going to be the reimagining of Spaceship Earth. There was going to be a Mary Poppins attraction. And then there was going to be this Play Pavilion. And what this was going to be, it says the Play Pavilion was the first announced in February 2019 as yet another piece of the park's reimagining. By the way, this is from WW Magazine. The idea, Epcot's former Wonders of Life Pavilion will be transformed into an immersive, family-friendly space devoted to playful fun and interactive experiences. Concept art suggested Epcot's Play Pavilion would feature an indoor city with interactive games and elements, character meet and greets, and plenty of entertainment for guests of different ages. Intended to be high-tech and, according to some reports, potentially even inspired by the 2018 film Ralph Breaks the Internet. Disney stated the pavilion and its exhibits would be opened by Disney's 50th anniversary, which obviously did not happen. So if you look at this in the concept art, I think this idea is very likely what they're going to use with the Fortnite investment they have made. So it's very likely a lot of the ideas with this, of again being an interactive city of many sorts, it will become sort of a Fortnite integration into the theme parks. And another element of this was going to be interchanging quite a bit. This was going to be different stuff in here. It was going to rotate just like Fortnite does. So I suppose you're looking at this, and if this is the path that Disney takes, which I think very likely, if you're going to use Fortnite, I don't believe they're going to build necessarily a Fortnite land like what Universal has done with Super Nintendo World, but they would likely do some sort of pavilion like this with high-tech immersion and essentially bringing the video games into the theme parks. Now, I think the question you have there is this a good idea and will it work? And will it really compete with Super Nintendo World? Because I think obviously this is why they're getting involved in video games and talking about bringing it into the theme parks, because of what Universal is doing. And Disney's been doing this for a while now. When Universal has the Wizarding Worlds, all of a sudden Disney comes out with these highly immersive lands, Pandora, Galaxy's Edge, Toy Story Land, all these things. They would not have built those lands to the scale and immersion that they did if it wasn't for what Universal was doing. And I think yet again, Universal is kind of paving the way here for what Disney's looking at and saying, oh, that's really popular. Let's bring that into our parks. I also think Nintendo, without Epic Universe, even if it was just a Nintendo land coming to Universal Studios, would be an issue that Disney would have to try and figure out or try and have an answer for because of how big Nintendo and video games are. So this is why I think Disney is kind of trying to play catch up here, because they are years behind where Universal already is tapping into this video game market. But the idea of this becoming a digital interface inside the theme parks, I personally think is not the best idea. I think Super Nintendo World works because you take a video game, obviously, aspect, but it's like you're walking into it in real life. You're actually walking into the Mushroom Kingdom. You're walking into Donkey Kong Country. Eventually, more than likely, you're going to be walking into the land of Zelda. You're going to be able to touch, feel, and look at all these things, ride attractions that make you feel like you're inside the game. What Disney's likely to do is basically bring a digital interface that has these elements from Fortnite and what they're going to do in there inside the theme parks. And as a parent myself, I'm not really looking to bring my kids to a theme park so they can have more screen time. I think that's one of the reasons that theme parks have become much more popular, is as the world gets more digital, it's an alternative to more screens. It's one of the reasons, one of the biggest complaints people will talk about with Disney is having to be on your phone all the time. You don't want to go on vacation just to be on your phone constantly to be able to do these attractions in the theme parks. So by making more screens inside the parks, I think actually defeats the purpose or the idea as to why Nintendo and Super Nintendo World have been successful for Universal and will continue to. More than likely, they're going to do Pokemon and other Nintendo properties inside the Universal parks. So if Disney goes this route of just kind of trying to parlay Fortnite into the parks and these digital aspects, I don't really think that's what people want in a theme park. And I think it kind of goes against, yet again, what Disney is known for, is creating these immersive lands with storytelling, whisking you away somewhere. And instead of just plopping you in front of a screen so you can interact with Fortnite in a theme park, which, mind you, you can interact with Fortnite on the internet, on your computer or console for free. Fortnite is a free-to-play game. You can buy skins and other things in the game, but it doesn't cost you anything. So the idea that you're going to pay the higher prices that Disney's charging to go to a theme park to interact with the screen or elements from a video game in that way, I don't think is really appealing, personally speaking. I don't think that's the same thing Universal is doing, and I don't think that's tapping into why Nintendo has become a popular thing inside the Universal parks. Now, obviously, this is just a little bit of guessing on my part, but I think we can read between the lines of what Disney's saying and what they would like to do. And I think if they go this route, I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as big as Nintendo has been for Universal and will continue to be. And I don't think parents are going to be really excited about spending thousands of dollars on a vacation to take their kids to a theme park to be just plopped down in front of yet another screen playing Fortnite that they do at home. I think it's a different medium. It's a different aspect of when you walk into a theme park land and you go up the escalator into Epic Universe's Super Nintendo World. It's like you're going through the warp pipe. You're walking out of Princess Peach's castle. There's all the things that you've seen in the games, but it's a real world tangible type of thing. And there are screen elements in there, but for the most part, it's all touchable. It's tangible. It's things that you can walk into and see and experience. And that's different than I think what the route Disney will go here. So if this is their plan for video games, I don't know how this plays out, but I really don't think Disney at this point has any other options to really tap into video games. Obviously, spending $1.5 billion into Epic Games is a lot of money. And it probably is a much easier thing to do here versus creating your own gaming studio, because that would require a lot of capital. You would have to develop games that people are into and then hope that those games become popular enough to put into your theme parks. So Disney may go this route. They could also, of course, buy a video game property or a studio and then directly put those into their parks. But as of right now, they haven't done that. I think if this doesn't work out, that's very likely what you would see Disney do. It's kind of their MO, is to buy an IP that is, like what they did with Star Wars and Marvel, and try and bring that into the theme parks. Now, obviously, I think you can say that Star Wars, that brand is essentially The Walking Dead at this point. Marvel's not that far behind it, not where Star Wars is, but if they're not careful, it's going to wind up there. So their reputation when they buy these IPs, for the sheer reason of implementing them into their theme parks and having more IPs that they can try and make movies and shows out of, is not the best track record. But I think this is what you're looking at with Disney, but I do think they're playing catch up here. I think they were behind the 8 ball. I think that already at this point, you're seeing the beginning effects of Epic Universe and Super Nintendo World starting to have much more of an appeal to the younger audiences. And as the years go on and Disney does not have this aspect into their parks, they're already falling more behind there. So I think there's a lot of pressure on them to do this. I think they're convinced that this is the way they're going to go about it. But I think Fresh Baked here on Twitter X has a really good point about this. And he's talking about DMRO, talking about Disney experiences. And he says, backward thinking, in my opinion, the kind where executives are trying to outthink the game and result in misunderstanding your customer. It's far more simple than this. Parks are separate from digital. They are not the same. And I think he's exactly right. And I think this is what Universal does with Super Nintendo World, that although that's a video game franchise, it's not a digital experience. You are tangibly riding attractions. You are walking into Bowser's castle. You're experiencing these things in real life that are brought to life like you're walking into a game, versus I think the way Disney's going to go about doing this is a digital experience. And I just don't think that's what, especially the Disney audience, wants and expects from experiences. And this might work. I mean, you might have younger audiences that are into this, but I think this is a different type of experience, and it does run the risk of just yet another screen in a theme park that, especially when you talk about younger audiences, that parents aren't really excited about. And potentially as well, younger audiences may not want to go to a theme park just to experience more screens. I think you are seeing some of the younger generation wanting to unplug a bit, wanting to experience life that is not behind a screen or interfacing with an AI, as that's going to continue to be something in the years to come that I think people are going to want an outlet from. So if this is the path that Disney's going to take, I have lots of questions about it. Obviously, they haven't made any announcements for sure about these experiences. Again, hinting at things with Mando and Grogu and other things, and look at the Fortnite stuff with The Simpsons. That gives you an idea of probably where they're going to go with this. But if the whole idea here is just to have Fortnite experiences inside the theme parks that are digital, I don't think that's the way to compete with what Universal's doing. And I think more than likely they're going to wind up going back to the drawing board and then probably looking at either buying an IP or trying some other way to do this. But I think Disney, if they want to stay relevant with the younger audiences, they're going to have to try and tap into the video game market. It's only going to continue to grow. I think Hollywood, again, is a shrinking element. The studios are basically buying each other out, constantly merging together. And video games are kind of where the attention is. And I don't know if this path that Disney is going to take with this is going to be one that is the best path forward. But again, who knows? It could end up working. It could be something that younger audiences want. The parents don't like it, but the kids like it. And then it becomes something else. I think it's different what Universal is doing. Personally speaking, I think the way that Universal is doing it with the Super Nintendo World areas are the way forward to do that, bringing to life these digital experiences that's different. Because if you just walk into a theme park to experience something that you could do at home, I don't know how much of a draw that is, and I don't think that's really tapping into the potential that you could have in video games in the theme parks. But who knows? Obviously, this is just something that I'm just thinking about, looking at the breadcrumbs here, and they could have totally different plans. But I think from what we're seeing Disney laying out here, I kind of have a feeling this is the path they're going to go. And I don't know how that's going to work out. And obviously, I think Josh D'Amaro is going to be the next CEO of Disney. He's heavily involved with Epic Games and their collaboration with Disney. So I think that is probably going to be something that's very much on the forefront in the coming years for Disney, trying to integrate this more. And obviously, that means coming to the theme park. So I think probably to give us an idea of what they'll do is looking how they'll integrate these things into the Abu Dhabi park, see how those things go over. And very likely, if they go over very well there, they will bring them to the domestic parks. But even now, they're kind of behind the 8 ball, especially compared to Universal and what they already have going on and have had going on for years with Nintendo. So I think they definitely have a head start there. And I guess the question will be, can Disney make up ground there? And are they going to be able to implement video games into their theme parks in a way that kind of makes sense for how Disney traditionally has done theme park elements in their parks? But either way, that's going to be it, though, for this video. So if you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, as we do lots of coverage here of Universal Studios, Epic Universe, Disney World, and pop culture. And let us know in the comments, what do you think about Disney integrating Fortnite into the theme parks? And do you think it's going to work out the way that it seems like Disney is saying they're going to do it? And until next time, we will see you in the parks.